Hi, my name's Anna O'Donoghue and I'm a response officer based at Wellingborough Station and I've been there for 4 years.
I'm Jenny Cheney. I currently work in the Strategy and Innovation Department as a business partner.
Hi, I'm Rachel Mumford. I've been working with the force for Northamptonshire Police for 2 and a bit years now, and now the supervisor role for the Safer Roads team.
I'm Rachel Hanford. I'm a superintendent currently serving with Northamptonshire Police. I joined in 2000, so I've got 25 years service.
I'm Claire Chambers. I'm the Chief Digital Officer in Enabling Services, looking after the DDAT team, which supports police and fire. I've been in role for just over 4 years.
So my name is Liz Thomas. I joined Northamptonshire Police in 1976 and retired in 2006.
I'm currently the commander for the west of the county, responsible for response and neighbourhood policing.
I started for the force in 2006 and I was working in the Unison office as an administrator and then moved into HR and then, but just over a year ago, moved into my current role.
I think International Women's Day is important because I'd like to inspire the younger females that are finishing A-levels, finishing their GCSEs, college, school, jobs, whatever, to feel like they can make a difference.
Women have obviously in the past been marginalised and not had the same opportunities as men. Things have progressed. Obviously things like equal pay have been around for a long time. But there are still some issues with women not being able to progress in the workplace and not having the same opportunities as men.
I started in 76.
I was born in
sort of
76.
How weird's that?
Gee.
When were you born?
2002.
I was started in
God.
2000.
My first role was walking Corby Town Centre on my own at nights and all the rest of it, which was an interesting one.
How did the public respond to that? Because I remember going, many years later, going to a job, walking through a door and the guy standing there still with the door open. And I said, is there? He said, I'm waiting for your colleague. I said, no, I'm on my own. And he said, but you're a woman, you're out on your own. And I was like,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So, but that was many years later.
I've had that not long ago, going to a report of a burglary to an elderly lady that was home by herself. And I came through the door and I said, let me do a search of the property to make sure everything's okay. And she said, is it just you? Where are your colleagues? I said, yeah, it's just me, it's fine. I've got my kit. I was explaining to her how to protect myself. And she said, well, you look so young and so small. You won't be able to protect me or you.
So uniform-wise, we wore a skirt and the uniform jacket, which obviously you don't have now, and tights or stockings. Most of them wore stockings and had a stocking allowance, as I recall, and a cape. But the interesting thing for me was always the bag. So you had to, as part of your uniform, to carry the handbag. In your handbag, you had to have your pocketbook and a truncheon. The truncheon was about so long, and the handcuffs were the significant one, because on the occasions when you arrested somebody, it was literally a matter of, hang on, I've got to get handcuffs on you to arrest you. And again, in those days, how you arrested people was very different. You didn't have the very basic defence techniques.
So I've been working in the force for about 2 and a bit years now, and I work in the Safer Roads team.
So I've been in force 19 years nearly, so 20 years next year. Started off in the Unison office as an administrator, and it was part-time. I had young children, so it sort of fitted in with that. Just over a year ago, moved to Strategy and Innovation.
So I've only been in force for 4 years. I spent 23 years in the NHS before, but I've always worked in tech, so I look after the DDAT team in Enabling Services. I was always in a technical role, then I moved into management.
As a female officer, after the Sex Discrimination Act, did you find that you would still get sent to things because you were a woman that your male counterparts could have dealt with?
And that's an interesting one, Rachel, because I'm not maternal, never had children, and it was very much, there's a female in custody, so you'd go to, in my case, Wellingborough, Corby, Kettering, And so yes, you were called to, and I hated it.
In 2002, that was still happening for sure,
Was
because
it?
I was the only female on my shift, and I was in Rushden, and the sergeant called me to Wellingborough because they'd taken 2 children into police protection, and the sergeant said, we've taken these kids into police protection, you need to look after them. And so there were some cops around the thing. I said, have you got kids? Yeah, I've got kids. Have you got kids? Yeah. And then I got back and then I said, Sarge, with the greatest respect, I don't have children. I've never changed a nappy and I have no idea why they're making that noise. So with that, I'll leave you with it. But I don't think everybody would have approached it like that. I've always been a bit gobby.
I think it's good we've got a lot of senior women now, haven't we? Especially staff-wise. There's people to look up to and think that you can do it, isn't there? You can move up. And
Definitely.
it definitely encourages people.
Yeah.
And you see a lot of people moving around the organisation as well, don't you? And like you getting promoted in their department and moving around. So
It's seeing people like
good.
you, isn't it? Whereas
Yeah.
if it's only men in senior positions and you think, well, that will never be me because they don't look like me. Whereas if you have got women up there, I think even unconsciously you realise you can make it. Every so often a male colleague will say to me, are you all right? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. You were okay with what happened in there? And I'll say, yeah. And I haven't even noticed that something has, I don't know, Claire, can you take the notes, please? Or, something really, really silly.
Yeah.
But a male colleague has picked up on it that wasn't right, that it shouldn't be assumed. Not noticing or letting it just wash over you is as bad as not being able to challenge it all those years ago.
yeah.
So I think we do have to be more conscious about what happens and when. And people say to me, but you're really senior, that wouldn't happen to you. It doesn't make any difference. It still happens.
Wanted to see life, so I joined the police force. And they tried to put me off. I remember there was a wonderful Sergeant Rennie Phipps, and she came around and was trying to put me off. And nothing was going to work until she said, have you ever seen a dead body? And it really did hit a nerve, and I thought, oh my goodness, I hadn't considered that at all. And of course, she was absolutely right, because
I
those
think
sorts
all
of things
students had
happened.
to do that, didn't they?
Yeah,
That
they
had
did.
gone by the time I
They
joined.
did.
My dad told me about that because obviously he was in the job.
Of course,
Yeah, and he and his dad, and I'm like, I think fifth generation. So it was destined.
Is that your attraction?
Yeah. So why did you join?
Similar to what you said, how you wanted to experience life.
It's certainly an
haven't we?
eye-opener, isn't
Yeah,
it?
absolutely.
I think it's a privilege to
Yeah.
have seen and done and met the people
Yeah.
either on that side or that side.
Exactly, yeah. And I
it's a
started when I
privilege,
was
really.
18, same as you.
Oh,
Wow.
So
yeah,
when I
that
was doing the recruitment process, when I was between 17 and 18, I was telling all my friends at school, oh, I want to join the police, and it's something that came out of absolutely nowhere.
So I did a degree and then joined policing with a degree. Some of the best PCs I've had on my teams have been people who've had some life experience, come from different walks of life, and indeed younger people who who aren't particularly academic. When I felt like I knew how to be a good PC, then I felt I was ready, and then was a sergeant, and I've done lots and lots of different roles since.
I think there is a lot of support. There's the gender forum. I'm on the gender forum now. It used to be the women's forum, and all the support networks that there are, and the training, the springboard, and the confidence building training, things that women can do. I know I've not done it personally, but I know some people who have, and they said that really helped them with things like imposter syndrome and feeling like they could actually go for senior jobs and have a go at it.
And it shouldn't affect you just because you're a mum. Doesn't mean you can't be, boss lady. Do you know?
Well, I think that imposter syndrome thing really does. If you don't talk about it, it becomes a big deal
Yeah.
and stops you doing things that you might want to do. I've had it, and I still get it. Doesn't matter how senior you get or how big your job is, if you're that way inclined to just think about it a little bit or reflect on how you're feeling or whatever, you'll get it.
I'm not going to say it's been a walk in the park because it hasn't. But when I looked up, as in upwards rank-wise in the organisation, when I was a PC, I didn't see anybody that really looked like me, and the female senior officers most of them didn't have children. It kind of felt to me like it was a choice. You're either going to do policing or you're going to have a family. And there was that kind of, I guess, undertone noise in the background of, well, you don't want to, you know, be suddenly, or you can't do this and you can't do that because you've got kids, and be that annoying woman on the team. And I kind of am more about the art of the possible and what you can achieve.
At the start of my career, it was an advantage being a woman, because it was at that point that they wanted to encourage more women into the workplace. The way that women in the workplace now are supported as well, whether it's through pregnancy or at the other end, menopause or endometriosis, can't say that word, or anything in between, that are specifically for women. I think, again, back when I started, I got asked lots of times, when was I going to have a baby? So they could plan.
Really?
Yeah, I haven't got children even now.
Wow.
So it was never going to be a thing for me. But I got asked all the time. And of course now it's not asked. And I think
I've never been asked.
Yeah.
Oh, even when
Anywhere
I started,
near
because I'd
that.
already got one, I got asked if I was going to have another one. So
Wow.
like, when do you think you might have another one? Because Leah was about 2, I think, when I started at the police. So yeah. So it's changed.
Yeah.
I got sent away once when I was a tech going to fix a PC. I walked into the secretary's office. Obviously, she was a woman.
Yeah.
Consultant was a man, and she had a problem with her PC, and the consultant just happened to walk out of his room at the time and saw me, and he said, "Oh, what are you doing here?" And I said, "Oh, I've come to look at your secretary's PC." And he went, "Go away."
Excuse me?
I said, "Sorry." He said, "Go away and tell your boss to send me a proper engineer."
Wow.
At the time, I just walked away.
Oh no.
I walked away because I didn't feel like I was 22. I couldn't challenge. So I went back, and my boss at the time, who was a man, was livid about it actually. And so what he did was we had some apprentices that were working with us, and he sent me back with a 18-year-old apprentice who didn't know what he was doing, and he was happy to do this. He sat at the desk, and I sat at his shoulder and told him what to do. And my boss at the time said, "I'm sure it hasn't made a difference to that consultant, but I feel better about it."
Yeah.
So I thought, that's great.
Yeah.
Because it really dents your confidence when that sort of thing happens.
Yeah, it's because he had your back.
Yeah, and I've had that all through my career. There's always been a male ally who has helped. Shouldn't need them,
No.
but at the time you did.
Yeah. It's like you say, we shouldn't need these male allies at all, but they are there, and it's nice that they're willing to help as well, and that they don't see you as just a woman who's in a crisis, sort of, That's a horrible thing that happened to you. That should have never happened. And, it genuinely shocked me, because that obviously nowadays you wouldn't.
I would really hope that doesn't happen these days.
No.
I'm sure it does somewhere, but
Yeah.
especially in our police force, I can't ever see that happening nowadays, which is great and shows how far we've come.
I didn't think I could have kids, and then ended up being pregnant. Obviously, there's a bit what happens in between that, but I was pregnant anyway. But I came back to work as a response sergeant when my daughter was 13 weeks old on the full shift pattern.
On the full shift
Yep.
pattern, did they not offer any flexi shift pattern?
Yeah, you're protected. You could have had, I can't remember how many weeks it was with no nights. But actually, personally, I thought the more days I spend at work, the less time I'm going to have with my child. And actually, if I worked nights, I could get home, last a couple of hours sleep, and then get up and have the rest of the day with her. Because, if you join policing, it's a 24/7 service. And actually, men have children too, and are dads. And so I kind of feel that actually, if you are a parent, whether you're a man or a woman, and you want to spend time with your children, and you're a cop as well, we can't all not work nights, or all not work weekends. As the kids have been at different points in their lives, I've thought, okay, well, what roles are there available? What would best sort my situation? Because I think that, if you get your networks around you and people that are happy to support you, and you put yourself forward, I personally have never felt like I've been disadvantaged, certainly through promotion, because I'm a woman. Sometimes it's just about having speaking to somebody who's been through it and what they did to resolve it, what other options are there. And I've had to make sacrifices with my kids and I've missed stuff, but I don't think that's any different than a lot of other jobs as well, where sometimes there's pressures and you miss things. But I like to think that, well, certainly my daughter, because she's older and she can verbalise it better, but she says she's proud. She sees that I've been successful and I've worked hard and been a fighter and not let things get in my way.
For periods, for example, we all know, everyone knows now, well, pretty much everyone, majority of women have periods.
Yeah.
At some point within the month, we have 7 or whatever days of bleeding. It happens. And yet, we're not allowed to talk about it. We're not allowed to say, oh, I'm going to go home now because I've got really bad cramps. Like, it just doesn't happen. I try to make it happen sometimes because I have had really bad cramps and had to leave early, which is fine. But when people are asking, I'm like, I don't know, because it feels weird. But it's like if you had a cold, you say, oh yeah, I'm not feeling well, I've got a cold.
It's natural, isn't it?
Yeah, and we all know it happens, but we're just not allowed to talk about it sometimes. It's
been quite encouraging recently. I've heard quite a few male managers wanting to understand about the menopause and things and how it might be affecting the women that work for them, and they really want to know about it and know what they can do to help. So I thought that's good change, because otherwise it would have just been don't talk about it,
Yeah.
I try and talk about it, but I do, and I have thought about this, whether I'm doing the right thing or not. I do tend to make it a bit more jokey rather than serious, like the foggy brain and, tell me that again, I know we had that conversation but I've forgotten what we said, sorry, menopause brain. And I do sometimes wonder whether I should probably be a bit more serious, because actually it is real. I'm not just being a bit flaky.
Yeah.
I do know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But it's out. It's more out there, isn't it? It's better. And again, I don't think even you, it's really difficult when you're not going through it to know what it feels like.
Yeah.
And before I was menopausal, I was like, a few hot flushes, it'll be fine. Haven't had one hot flush.
Well, it's different for everybody. That's the thing, isn't it? So just because one person feels like that doesn't mean the next lady's going to feel the same. So
Exactly.
Yeah. And I can remember again back in time, older women who were working with us would make comments about hot flushes or whatever, and some of the comments that the men made at that time, you just think, because they didn't understand it, obviously, but they will all be husbands, fathers, brothers, whatever.
There's lots of people, sergeants, PCs, that have their maternity buddies now. So if you are pregnant in the force, you can reach out to a maternity buddy and they'll help you.
And you can share the maternity. So I've got a situation where one of my male inspectors is just about to go off an extended paternity leave because he shared the childcare leave, whatever it's called, with their partner. So yeah,
I like that. What
Which
would
is
it have
good.
been like in your time if
Oh,
one
you
of the
wouldn't.
officers
You
were
would.
pregnant?
You'd be out. You would leave the job.
You'd leave the job.
So I don't think. I'm sure there'd
A
be
lot of people didn't come
statistics
back, did
somewhere.
they?
It's probably about 5 years was the period, unless you were really committed. So yeah, it was a standard, probably 4 or 5 years, and then if somebody got married even,
Oh really?
or certainly pregnant, then you left.
You left.
Dad told me that. That was one of the things where he said, if you want a family, you can't join the police.
I still find it quite remarkable that the support is there now for you to have paternity and maternity and buddies and things like that. It's quite.
Yeah.
So there was the motorbikes. That was my significant thing for me, I think.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember seeing pictures of you on bikes. I don't know where, but I do remember seeing pictures of you on the bikes.
And that was a massive challenge because I was on traffic, tried 3 or 4 times, no chance. I have got to tell you this story because it just shows you how things have changed. So, and I applied, and do you remember Pete Barclay, superintendent?
Yeah.
Wonderful man. He was my sergeant, and for once somebody was going to support me, so he supported my
He was
application.
really supportive, that was Pete.
Yeah, supported my application, and they said, right, if you can pick up the motorbike, we'll give you a course. But little did they know, I was extremely strong, farming stock. You know, I was very strong. So I picked up the
So you
bike.
engaged your
I
core.
engaged my core, and it was
Wow.
a BMW 750. It was a big machine. And I can remember that Terry, you could see him thinking, oh my God, she's picked it up. So that means I could read
You
him.
have to give her a course
Yeah.
now.
Exactly.
Wow.
Were you the first female to do it? You must have been.
I was in Northamptonshire.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you think you were tolerated or welcomed, or not really?
Oh, it was a real mixed. It was a real mixed bag. But I think during my early years, you didn't know any different.
No.
So the culture was hard at times, and yeah, there's stories we can tell, and certainly stories I could tell about all sorts of things that happened negatively.
Yeah.
But then I was of that sort of mindset that coming to the end of my service, when things had changed a lot, I felt it had made me the person I was.
I opted not to colour my hair when I started going grey. And I've had so many people say to me, oh, you're brave.
Really?
Women, yeah. But actually, in the workplace, I quite often wonder, what does that tell people? By leaving my hair naturally, does that mean, natural colour I mean, does that mean that people then see that I'm kind of at the end of my career and, you know, don't really care and ready to retire and whatever, or I would like to think it gives it a bit of, you know, kind of...
You've got wisdom.
Yeah. And even I've said to some people in my team, you know, do we have an idea of what so-and-so's retirement plan is? And people don't necessarily talk about it, and I think it's because people think you won't care anymore.
I think particularly when
Yeah.
you're already in a senior role, but if you were thinking about trying to progress and people thought, well, you're only going to be here for another couple of years,
Exactly.
That's true.
then why would
Yeah.
they promote you?
Exactly. So if I went and if I applied for another job now, which I could, you know, I don't actually have any firm plans, but I walk in with greying hair, will they think, we'll only get a few years out of her? Would they
Like
think
an
that about a
interview
man?
and stuff.
Yeah. Would they think that about a man?
See, I think with the grey hair, it's very different for men and women.
Oh yeah.
So we have a couple of men in our office that have grey hair, which is completely fine. No one bats an eyelid. But the second a woman comes in with a bit of grey in her roots, it'll be a bit more, you know, obvious in a way.
If I think about then, can only imagine some of the things that you tolerated, some of the things that were said and done to us, and then think about, would that happen today? So, I don't know, like on my first day, they asked me how big my feet were because women have to get close to the sink. And
See, I laugh at that. You'll probably think,
was
oh,
in-
that's terrible.
I was in
And I find that funny.
I was in a field with a horse that let its manhood down, and they started making comments about, you know, whether I felt at home or not. In Parva training, we'd train with water canisters, and we'd wear white shirts then, not the blacks. So you imagine if everybody turns and sprays you with a water thing, it becomes like a bit like a wet t-shirt competition.
Yeah.
So some of these things, but if you fast forward now, can you imagine that happening? So what happens in society if we've got, you know, sexist, racist and homophobes out there? Invariably, irrespective of the processes that we put in place, it will come in. This was a piece of work you did for uni, wasn't it?
Yes,
So
my
and
dissertation.
you did a topic on misogyny, didn't you?
When I first joined, I was 18, as I said, I was young, I was no idea what was going on in the real world, you know. It took a while for me to realise that people view female officers and male officers as being very different. I'd always be crewed up with one of these big, strong men, and we'd go to a job.
Somebody's got to look after you.
I can look after myself, you know.
Good girl.
Thank
Yes,
you.
girl.
And you'd always find they'd always go straight to the male colleague. I felt very much brushed under the carpet. I didn't just do it for myself, I did it for all the other young females joining in police.
Girls.
I did it for the girls, yeah.
Nice.
And
then as a result of this piece of research that Anna did, we've had some cultural away days. So where we've taken the organisation out in big groups and Anna's presented at them so that all generations of police and, you know, all our frontline and our neighbourhoods and certainly within local policing have been able to hear the reality of what some of our young women still face. You know, I know there's a debate over whether there should be a word such as banter, but policing is very stressful. We all need, I mean, I don't take myself very seriously at all, and we all need the time to de-stress, but there's a difference between de-stressing and having a laugh and having a laugh at somebody else's expense, or making somebody else feel like the centre and the butt of a joke.
There were some comments about how women in higher ranks were promoted because of their sexual encounters with other males. So that was something that was still prominently spoken about.
God, that brings back memories.
That is like a rumour, you know, I've gone in and like somebody might not have said, I obviously slept my way to the top, that's why I'm here. And that you wait for the, so it's actually a joke, I definitely didn't.
You probably subconsciously say it first so that no one else makes that joke, maybe.
Yeah,
you know, say,
true.
it was just absolutely shocking to see how many other women felt the same way as I did.
But I mean, I've seen in the time I've been here, there's a lot more female police officers than there used to be. I think when I first started it was about 25% female, and now it's almost 50-50, isn't it? Whereas staff have always been more women than men in most departments and across the board. So it has changed, and there are, you know, female, I mean, we had a female DCC while I've been there, or two, I think we've had two. So there are senior female police officers and senior female police staff, aren't there, that sort of showing me the way that you can do it. There are female chief constables around the country.
We have a responsibility to grow our young men into respectful young men, respectful of people based on their, you know, gender, in terms of, you know, women we're not this is a sex object for you to make comment about, but, you know, also respect for each other. So I remember a couple of my team, if I was often crewed with another female, interestingly, and we got on really well anyway, and if we had to go out and do an early morning arrest attempt, you know, when you go out like 5:30 to go and scoop somebody up for days, so we'd get ready to go out, and this colleague said, ladies, he'd always call us ladies, you need to wait because I'm not ready, you'll have to wait for me. And we were like, you're not invited, mate. And he's like, no, he's a very violent, dangerous person. We're like, yeah, that's really good, but I've got exactly the same baton that you've got. And actually, I won't say his name, every time you come out, you get assaulted. Because it's that kind of how he used to approach the situation. And I was like, yeah, but I've got one of these, and it's really quite powerful. And you can kind of how you interacted with people. We have different places, don't we? And it's interesting at like a senior leadership level. I'm never made to feel like I'm like a second-rate person in the room. And I think certainly like on my command team, you know, I work with Steve and Chris Hillary and Andy Glenn as our pool of superintendents. We all think differently, and there's an appreciation that we will approach it differently and think differently, and that's the benefit of diversity and what you bring to that conversation. I never thought I got promoted. I'd never think I'd get promoted to where I am now. I thought I'm too opinionated, way too gobby, and I don't look anything like they do in terms of how they approach stuff. Things adapted and changed, and all of a sudden there was a seat for people with different thought processes.
You need to be opinionated. You need to be able to say what you want to say to climb the ranks.
And just not take yourself too seriously.
And you shouldn't feel put off just because you're a woman or just because you're a man. It doesn't matter what you are. It just matters what you do with this, I suppose. That's pretty much it.
Yeah. Absolutely agree, and I think the younger generations coming through, you know, from what you've said about challenging things or questioning things, that's exactly what we need to come in and start working in ways that suit our needs now as public rather than what they were 30 years ago or 20 years ago.
I'd recommend this job to anyone. I think
it's important to get it out.
100%.
It saddens me when I hear some young people after 18 months, well, I need to get off response and I wouldn't do this job again. I'm like, I loved the front line.
It's
honestly,
it's hard. Don't get me wrong, it's tough, and you don't always finish on time, and you have so much paperwork, and you do it for tomorrow. It's really, really tough. It's a great job.
Great career.
I think you learn.
I think we're
so
privileged.
much.
I
I agree.
All the lives you've touched, the decisions you've made that have impacted people. It's when you get people that say, I don't like the police, but you're all right.
Yeah, exactly. You're all right for a police officer, you are. Yeah.
But then we have a duty to change that, don't we? Because people's perceptions are only born out of how they've been treated.
When I was asked to be part of this project, I felt so overwhelmed and overjoyed because it's a massive part of my life now, especially with everything going on in the world, that I'd love to be a part of anything to do with raising awareness of all of the different things that women have to go through, especially being a woman myself.
It's really important to remember the past, but sometimes I think we need to leave that past and think about the opportunities that the future, the next future, offers us.
I was really happy to be asked to be part of this project. I am really passionate about women in technology, which is what my role has been through my career. I'm really passionate about women being in the workplace, being able to bring their qualities to the workplace alongside their male allies, and to be able to have gone through all of the years that I've worked in the career that I have worked in. I think to be able to reach a point towards the end of my career where I can talk to people, share my experiences, show how far we've come, is just brilliant. I just really enjoyed it.
When I got asked to be part of this project, I was very nervous, but I was also very excited. I think it's great to start filming and getting things on social media to encourage other people.
So I was asked to be part of this project. I think I've worked for the police now for almost 20 years, and I have moved around within the organisation. I've moved up, started off as an administrator part-time, and I've moved up in the organisation. And I just feel that it's important to show other women that they are able to do that. So that's why I was interested in taking part.
From a personal point, it's made me think of all the experiences I've had and things that I have achieved in my lifetime, but also meeting other people that have gone through different aspects of policing, different experiences themselves. And it's also obviously bringing back the old memories, which has been really exciting. Thoroughly enjoyed that side of it.
It's my opportunity to share my experiences, and if that helps just even one or a couple of our females in the organisation look at the journey that I've been on and it influences their understanding of the art of the possible, then it's something positive.
We could be film stars, girls.
We're going to be film stars. I think we're doing really well.
Do you?
Yeah, I think
Just
we're
build
doing
a
well.
bit.